Hey everybody, it's Yvonne DiVita from BlogPaws. Welcome to another BlogPaws Cares and Shares. And we have some really fantastic guests today. We have fantastic guests every week. You can go to our YouTube channel. You can go to our YouTube channel and see all of the BlogPaws Cares and Shares programs. But today we're going to talk about technology. A lot of bloggers tend to think that once they start their blog, the platform they're on is all the technology they need to know about, and they don't even know enough about that. So BlogPaws wanted to bring together a couple people who have backgrounds in technology and can answer some of your questions and help you understand how your blog works and what you need to know about the different parts of your blog. So when you write to me and say you're in trouble and what do you do and do I know anyone who can answer a question, a techie question, I can say, sure, talk to Steve or talk to Tom. So today we have Steve Pelletier from Slim Doggy and Tom Collins from BlogPaws. Steve, I'm going to let you go first. And
sure.
Right now what I would like you to do is introduce yourself, and then we'll move on and let Tom introduce himself. And then we're going to talk about technology and WordPress and plugins and all those crazy things that most people don't understand.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for that introduction, Yvonne, and it's good to see you and Tom again. So I'm actually a software entrepreneur. I've been in the software business for probably as long as some people have been born, way back in the day. And about 3 years ago, when we started our blog, Slim Doggy, dove pretty deeply into WordPress. I'm not a developer, but I am tech aware is the expression I like to use, and learned a lot about it, and like to share some of the things that I've learned over the years as it relates to WordPress and managing a blog site, keeping it up and running, and working really well.
Yeah, I like that, tech aware. That is a really great way to describe yourself and some of the other techie people who I do not fit into that. I know enough technology and back-end stuff to get in trouble. So basically I lean on the next person, Tom Collins. Tell us about your tech background, Tom.
Yeah, well, that's maybe even less than Steve. I don't have a tech background. I was a lawyer for 25 plus years, for God's sake. And I hope the real message here is that if I can do it, you guys sure can. But tech aware I like that Steve used. My way of expressing that has always been digital literacy. I feel like learning enough about the technology and how to make it work is very much like learning how to use a pencil or a quill pen or a typewriter in past history of human communication. These are just communication tools, and you should learn enough about them to make them do what you want them to do instead of what the real developers may have designed them to do.
That's interesting. That's very interesting. So, Steve, what do you think about that as far as that last comment? Make them do what you want them to do.
Well, the first thing I'd say is I don't know if a lot of people even know what a typewriter is anymore. I do.
There you go.
Yeah. No, I think that's right.
So I don't.
No, so am I, Tom. So I think that's right. I think it's, you want to kind of make it do what you want it to do. That is your site, but also you want to be self-sufficient. So it doesn't mean that you have to know how to code. It doesn't mean that you know how to fix all problems, but you should be able to handle, the 80-20 rule. 80% of the things you come up against in a quick way, without having to panic or a call for help. And calling for help can be expensive. I know exactly. That. One of the things I'll be talking about in the presentation is the importance of backups and security, both in terms of plugins, and then we'll give you some tips about how to use those things. But if you ever got, for example, hacked, you could spend thousands of dollars getting your site restored, and for most bloggers, that's kind of a lot of money. So you want to be prepared, you want to minimize those chances, and be self-sufficient and aware, have a great awareness around those issues.
So you're going to talk a little bit about that at the conference, and give me some sense of, if I was hacked as a blogger, what protections should I have in place to prevent that, or what would I do if I don't have those things in place?
Right. So if you don't have those things in place, then you better show up at the session so that you can learn what to do to get those things in place.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. So anybody could get hacked. I mean, Apple was hacked. So
right.
No matter what you do, there's always a chance that something nefarious could happen to you. But what you want to do is, I use the analogy of like if you're a homeowner and some robbers come by and case your neighborhood. They're looking for easy entry points. So if you have a dog, a big dog, if you have fences and securities, they're not that they won't try, but they're more likely to try the neighbor who doesn't have all those things. So you want to set up your site with proper plugins so that, and there are some amazing security plugins, so that you can be warned of things, weird behavior on your site from a traffic perspective. You want to create a firewall environment that is blocking, for example, you could block certain countries that are known for generating hack attempts. And most importantly, yeah, and we'll get into this in the conference, but you also want to back things up, because if and when you get hacked, or if something goes wrong, like your computer, the server blows up, you always want to have a recent backup, because if you think about all the work that you've done over the years, what would happen if it all went away?
Yeah.
Like, how would you feel?
Oh my gosh! So, Tom, can you talk to that a little bit? Because I know it was always a concern of ours previously at Windsor Media, where we published books and things. So we backed up every day, didn't we?
Yeah, we had a tech guy who took care of us, and he put a backup system in place that overnight, every night, it backed up our entire hard drives. So that was our local stuff. That was the stuff we were generating on our own computers, not so much on the blog. Now here's a place where I'm a little different from Steve. I have never wanted to be responsible for the backup and the security side of my online properties. And so for many years, we did all our blogging on the TypePad platform and let the kids at Six Apart take care of all that stuff. And I like Blogger, although I know WordPress is the only place to be. And so just recently, since last year, we have started using the new Rainmaker platform that Copyblogger has put out, which is based on their Genesis framework and their StudioPress themes and their synthesis hosting. So they take care of all that back-end stuff, and I value it because it allows me to use the techie stuff that I do know how to do, some little bit of HTML, a little bit of CSS, and so that's Tom, what I'm going to be talking about at the conference in the one-on-one sessions.
Yeah, are you saying that the content on Rainmaker that we're using is being backed up to the cloud, so to speak?
Yeah, I'm not going to pretend I know exactly how they do it, but I know they have a backup system in place and redundant servers and all that good stuff, because they've been hosting on their synthesis platform for years, so they have a lot of experience in taking care of their own stuff, and now they've made that all available to us. Now it's not cheap. I mean, one of the things about going that route is that you're buying a package of the WordPress software, the StudioPress themes, the Genesis framework, the hosting, all comes in one package. And for me, especially if you intend to monetize, it's money well spent.
Well, so Steve, we have a question that I think is sort of directed to you. Is it hard to back up your website? Is there a program that you should be using to do it?
Yeah, I mean, it's not hard at all. And so a couple things. In WordPress environment, which is what I've used, so I can only speak to it, there are plugins that are available. There are also services that are available. Here's a typical use case would be find a hosting provider, and I'll talk about hosting in Nashville, but find a hosting provider that as a default will at least back you up once a night. Okay, so that's like the default baseline. So worst case scenario, you'll have a backup. Even if you posted twice and had a bunch of comments, you might lose that, but at least you're not going to lose your history. And then in WordPress, there are a handful of really, really good backup plugins that do two things. One, you can schedule these things to run automatically, so periodically throughout the day you can have them go and run. And then even better, this is to me a critical point, which I'll talk about, is when you're doing any changes to your site, whether that's updating your WordPress environment or updating plugins, trying some new themes, there's always a chance something can go horribly wrong. And so the real way to handle that is to have a on-demand backup plugin so that you can click up, before you do anything crazy, do a on-demand backup, and then if something happens, you're pretty much live right from right then, so you can restore from right then instead of going back to maybe last night when the last time was. Yeah. So that's it.
Yeah. So it sounds like people better come to your session and learn a little bit more about that. Let's talk a little bit about what bloggers should know about HTML and CSS and things like that. Tom is going to talk about that. Tom, do I really need to know that stuff? I don't want to learn all that stuff.
In an absolute sense, no. You don't really need to know it. My feeling, again, as I said, is it's a literacy thing. You could always write your reports out longhand and hand them to the secretarial pool and let them do the typing. But if you really want control over the end product and not have to go back and catch all the typos and do multiple drafts that way, even back then, I preferred, when I was using a typewriter, I preferred to do my own typing. I always felt like my first draft was the equivalent of a third or fourth draft. So from a quality point of view, I think it is really useful to learn a little bit of HTML, learn how to, let's say you're embedding a picture in your blog post. Most of the tools will allow you to wrap the text around it, but they have a whole bunch of defaults about how close the text goes to the picture, how much spacing there is top and bottom, and if you want to have more control over that, you can flip into the HTML or text view of the draft and edit right in the HTML just exactly how that picture is going to behave. You can apply a max width tag instead of a strict width tag, and that will make the picture adjust automatically for a screen, for different screen sizes. So there are some things you can learn to do that are really, really simple, and all of you can learn to do it. It's not that hard.
So are you going to have
a lot more control over your blog?
Yeah. Are you going to have like a little handout for people, a little cheat sheet?
I'm going to have a CSS cheat sheet and an HTML cheat sheet, but I just emailed to the folks who have signed up for my session and asked them to tell me what their burning question is, so that in the little 10-minute spot that we have, I want to actually, as I said, I'm happy to get our fingers dirty and get in there and actually do what it is you want to learn to do.
So you'll have your laptop with you?
I'll have my laptop, and they're free to bring whatever wireless device they want to do, so that they can do it themselves.
So Steve, he's doing one-on-one sessions. So Saturday afternoon, we have a group of professionals who will take 10 minutes with each person that has signed up for them, and that's kind of what Tom's doing. Your session being longer, you'll have time for Q&A at the end. So we have another good question here. Is there simple coding a blogger should use? Are you talking about H1, etc., for headlines or something deeper? So Steve, let me have you answer that one, because I know you're, again, tech aware, and you do some of the development, or you do help people with their WordPress blogs.
Yeah, so yes, the answer is a little bit deeper than just H1s, etc. But I want to do two things quickly with following up with Tom. There's a couple of tools you could use besides his great cheat sheet. I'm not sure if anyone's heard of Firebug. Firebug is this cool add-in, and what it lets you do is as you go to your site, you can select different aspects of it and literally change parameters. So, like, if you wanted to see how would it look if you change the color or the background color or the font size? Does it screw up your menus? You can do that all in Firebug without doing anything crazy at all. And the other one is a site called Quackit. I'm not sure, Tom, if you've heard of that one, but
that's a new one on me.
It's really cool because, let's say you wanted to create a nice little formatted table, you can go into this Quackit program and visualize what you want to do, and then click a tab, and it will bring up the HTML code for you. And now you can just copy and paste that code into your system. So those are two amazing tools. I'm not going to actually talk about those at my conference, so hopefully the audience today can get some value out of it. But to answer this question, sorry.
No, that's fine.
H1 and those kinds of things, bold and stuff like that. I mean, most content management systems, they give you that capability. So if you want to, you don't need to know code for that. However, you can extend it without knowing HTML, CSS, PHP by using plugins. Like there's some really amazing plugins I'll talk about in Nashville that give you the ability to do so much more formatting on your posts and pages than the standard WordPress environment will let you do. And when you do that, if you're ever curious, you can go look in the the non-presentation mode and sort of see how that code looks, and it's a way to get you familiar with, oh, I see what happens when I do that. That's what translates that to code.
I think I need to take your session, Steve. I don't know. It's sounding like having enough, and I don't know what enough is, maybe that's what we should talk about, information and education on HTML, CSS, what your blog can do and what you can do. One of the things we used to do, Steve, back in the day, Tom and I started blogging in 2004, and we basically used to tell people, we'll teach you, we'll build a blog and we'll teach you how to blog, so you don't need to go out and hire a webmaster except for very extreme things. So is that kind of what we're talking about here, and has technology gotten to a point where that's even more complicated? Because it was pretty simple back then. Like I say, I can go in and change some of the coding in my blog to make the font bigger or to replace the picture. Tom's taught me how to do that, but I'm afraid to do anything else.
Now, I think the technology has made it easier. So back then, you'd have to go in and know, even though it's not difficult, you'd have to know what the syntax is. As Tom said, if you're going to, tag things differently, whatever, so that make sure you have the close bracket, don't forget that, all the things that can go wrong. Now, again, in most cases, there's a plugin for that. Is the expression that we use. There's an app for that. Well, there's a plugin for that. So you can find tools that make it much more point and click, as opposed to having to get back into the back end, into whether it's HTML or whether it's working with CSS files, or even potentially working with PHP files if you're working on a WordPress platform. You don't really have to do that. Like, if you're at that level, then you're, in my opinion, as a blogger, you're pretty advanced.
Interesting. So, Tom, what about sites like Blogger? That's not WordPress. What do we do, the folks of us who aren't on WordPress?
Well, in most Blogger themes, you can do pretty much what we've been talking about, because when you're in the text editor, you can flip between WYSIWYG and the text where you're actually looking at the code. So if you know a little bit, I'm trying to remember if I've run across any Blogger themes that have custom CSS capabilities, but a lot of WordPress blogs have custom CSS boxes. So, for example, one that I know a lot of people like to customize is a block quote. If you put in the tag block quote, what tells the browser what that should look like? It's your CSS. So if you can learn enough CSS to modify the block quote tag, then when you click the block quote, you can put a fancy quotation mark as a watermark behind. There's all sorts of things you can tell the system to do if you just learn a little basic CSS and HTML. And there may be a plugin for that too. The problem, of course, is that there are real limits to how many plugins you want to have running on your site and still have it run in a quality, fast way. So in the end, I just feel like it's worth it to learn a little bit of coding.
That brings up the next question.
And I don't mess with PHP, by the way. That's where I start to get freaked out.
Yeah, well, if you're a newbie, you know, this is like freaking you out if you're listening to it right now. I can just imagine it. Again, I know enough to be dangerous, and you're in trouble, Tom, because you never taught me that stuff about the block quote. And at this point in the game, what can newbie bloggers do to not...
The IT department does not let us do that on our blog.
But we have other blogs. All right.
Yeah, that's true.
So, Steve, how do you help a newbie blogger get over their fear of technology?
So I think a couple things. One is don't try to boil the ocean. So pick a couple of things.
What a good phrase.
Exactly.
Pick a couple of things you want to kind of focus on to learn as a starting point. It's just, I mean, it's just like with fitness. I'm into fitness, human and canine, and folks that come to me for advice, if they haven't, worked out in several years, you don't have them doing, clean and jerks and deadlifts. So you want to pick a couple of things, get started, start to get comfortable with it. Don't freak out though. It's really not that complicated. Just relax, take a deep breath, namaste, and off you go. And then realize that, like I said, there are a lot of really good tools out there that can help you. Can you start blogging and then learn the tech later? Absolutely, with the following caveat. As I said earlier, when you commit to doing this, you want to make sure that your site is as secure as possible, because there are hackers, and I'm going to show a demonstration in Nashville of like literally a real-time visualization of all the hacking attempts that are going on. It's insane.
Yeah.
So that, and then so you want to make sure you understand that security aspect, and the other part is just backing up. If you know those two things, and then you can write, you know how to take a decent picture. As far as I'm concerned, you're off and running, and then grow from there. Start learning some HTML, and when Tom talks about CSS, that's what that's the style sheet that essentially dictates the presentation of your site in all aspects, colors and sizes and all those other kinds of things. And you can ease into that over time, and next thing you know, you'll be in PHP writing your own plugin if things go well. But if not,
I know that sounds a little scary to me there.
No, but if not, no big deal. You have enough to keep your site up and running. Because at the end of the day, that's what you want to. It's a representation of yourself, of your point of view.
Yes.
You want it up and running all the time. You don't want people coming to a hijacked page or a dead page because it blew up.
Mm-hmm.
Start there and then progress from there as you need.
So Tom, I mean, we used to teach people, and one of the things that we did was we let them rely on the software. So we used TypeAd at the time, and it basically did everything for you. Why the heck does anybody have to learn more than that?
Well, I think we've been talking about that the whole time. You don't at bottom you don't have to. You can buy those services from a company like 6apart on the TypeAd platform, which, I mean, they just like WordPress, they have their full movable type is their backend software, and you can buy that and host it yourself and do all the customizations yourself as well. So you don't have to do this in order to get online and get blogging. I just feel like if you want to differentiate yourself, if you want to look more professional, these are skills that are not hard to learn, and like Steve says, you don't have to learn them all at once. Pick something that you'd like to tinker with on your blog and learn how to do that.
That makes sense.
It just isn't. It isn't that hard. It isn't beyond anybody who's listening here. If you can figure out how to log in and play a Hangout on air, you can certainly learn anything you need to about HTML or CSS.
Very interesting. Well, let's get to some basics here. We have a question that says, a strong password will help prevent hacking, right? Or is there more? I mean, tell us. Let's talk passwords. Steve, I got a strong password. Nobody's going to hack me.
Yeah, no, strong passwords definitely help. They're not the be-all and end-all, and here's why. Because what happens is the hackers basically program robots to go and try combinations of letters, numbers, and characters. So you might have a very, very strong password, but almost randomly, the machine, the robot that's trying to get into your system might create that combination, and there they are. They're in there. So it's absolutely mandatory that you use strong passwords, but there are some more things that you can do to prevent those robots to get in, and from even being able to run a bunch of combinations. And for example, you can limit login attempts. This is one of the things that the plugins do very well. If somebody doesn't log in correctly in, for example, 5 attempts, then they're locked out, at least for a period of time. And yeah, I mean, that could cause a problem if you're, kind of slow on the uptake today and you forget your username and password and, you end up getting yourself logged out. It's happened to some folks that I know. Yeah. But those are the kinds of very simple things that you can do to not only have a strong password, but also prevent anyone from even getting close to trying the number of combinations that they might do to get in.
So all the people out there with the password 123456, you know who you are. Stop it. Get rid of it.
Yeah. And there's a tool that you can use. There's a bunch of tools. I use one, and basically it's an application that sits on your desktop, and it can dynamically create passwords for you, and it stores them in like a vault. Now, the irony of it is you need a password for that.
Exactly. Exactly. I'm glad you brought that up, because here I sit, and I probably have 30 passwords. Other people probably have more. And I've thought about using one of those systems, and then you have to have one password, and if that one password gets hacked, you're toast.
Yeah, it's not quite that bad if it got hacked, but the good news is it's generally local on your machine as opposed to out there. Okay. And I don't know if you can see, but like I have paper where I've written my passwords, exactly. Right? And Steve, I still
this is being recorded, dude.
No, I know. If you can read my handwriting, then you deserve to get it.
No doubt can do that, right?
But my point there is that I still will refer to that occasionally, but I do use this vault, and it has some other benefits that it can auto log you in and save you the angst of having to go look it up. But the bottom line is, look, you need a strong password for everything you do, whether it's your WordPress site, whether it's your bank account online, whatever it might be, your Yahoo account. Make them all strong. And then from your WordPress site's perspective, take a few extra steps to lock down that site, make it harder so that the hacker goes to the neighbor's house and not yours.
There you go. There you go. I always say to people when I'm in the car and they're driving fast, because my family likes to do that, and somebody will pass us and they'll say, well, that guy's going to get the ticket. And I'm like, you don't know that. It's like going fishing. You don't know which fish you're going to catch. You might catch the one that's right by, or someone else might come up. So, stop driving so fast. Okay, so that's not part of what we're doing here. Listen, we're coming to the end, and this has been so informative and educational, and I can't wait to share this with everyone. I can't wait to have you at the conference, Steve. This session is going to be just, I can tell, I'm going to get all sorts of fantastic comments about how good it was. So we're going to sign off, and one of the things we like to do at BlogPaws is kind of ask our guests what their pet project is. So tell us where to find you online, and then tell us what your pet project is.
Sure, I guess I'll go. So besides slimdoggy.com and slimkitty.com, I am also involved with a company called petnet.io, and they are using a lot of our data and algorithms that we've created to create this amazing new product, which is a internet-connected dog and cat feeder. It will help pet owners. It'll let you schedule automatic feedings. It'll let you feed if you're working late at the office. You can click on your iPhone app and it will feed the proper amount of food automatically so that the pet doesn't go hungry. And more than that, we have done some amazing algorithms around not only proper portion sizing, but also analyzing the food. There's so many foods out there. I mean, it's my passion is pet food, and I'm known now as the pet food dude with attitude. And the reason why is because there's a lot of food products out there, some of which are more appropriate for dogs and cats than others, depending on the price and the quality of ingredients. So it's a kind of an amazing project, because we're trying to help pet owners make better feeding decisions, and feeding decisions are the most important things that pet owners face every single day. What you put in that bowl and how much you put in that bowl is so critical to their health. So I'm happy to talk about that. When anyone wants to ask about that, I'm very, very passionate about this.
Well, fantastic, fantastic. And Tom, we know you, but tell us a little more. Where can we find you? Where will you be? And what's your pet project? And even though I know the answer.
Yeah, I was going to say, Tom at blogpaws.com is the easy way to get at me. You can find me in the community, on the website, and pet projects, the conference, of course, that's upon us. And then right after that, I'll be jumping back into the new social learning center that we are building out at BlogPaws, and getting that up and running and fully functional. So a couple of things that I definitely am going to cover with people in the cheat sheets is how to copy and paste code. I didn't learn code cold. I figured out how to find the code that's existing on my site. If I see something really cool on somebody else's blog, I know how to go in and copy their coding, and then take it into a text editor and play with it, and then try it out as a draft until I get it to do what I want it to do. So you don't have to become a master coder right out of the blocks. You can steal other people's stuff. It's called research.
It depends what it is, also. I mean,
yeah,
we know.
Just the code you're not stealing anything that is intellectual property. You're just copying the way they make their layout look, and then tweaking it to fit yours.
Cool, very cool. Well, gentlemen, this has been extremely informative and fun. I enjoyed it. I'll see both of you at the conference, and
Sure.
next week there will be another BlogPaws Cares and Shares. This is Yvonne DiVita signing off, and we want to thank, by the way, Robbie in the background, who's the producer this week. She doesn't get her face on the camera when she produces. Usually, sometimes Tom produces, and we couldn't do this without them. So thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Good to talk to you. See you next week.
Yeah. Bye-bye.